I wish with all my heart to fly with dragons in a land apart. Wait, I think I got my franchises mixed up again. Alright, before we get started, as always, a quick thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. And a special shout out to my newest patron, BRFan984. Thank you so much for your support. And if you enjoy the content I make and would like to offer your support, then for as little as $1 a month, you can get your name listed right here at the start of every video. Link to that is in the description below. And now let's get into the actual review.
I started this. I have to finish it.
Wish is the newest Disney animated film and was the film made to commemorate their 100th anniversary as a company. It tells the story of Asha, a young woman who lives in a kingdom where wishes are hoarded by an evil king. But when she wishes upon a star and the star answers her, the king suddenly realizes that his position of power is threatened and uses any tool at his disposal to make sure that nobody gets their wishes without his say-so. Wish, as previously mentioned, was made to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Walt Disney Studios. Something of this caliber no doubt felt like a good idea at conception, but it's in its execution where it becomes very clear what the problem is. This is a film that is quite literally an executive mandate. Something cooked up in the corporate office rather than an idea a creative had, and it was a film that also had an unmovable release date. This combination, along with the fact that you know that the studio was micromanaging this into mincemeat, and you can see what it all amounts to. A very underwhelming, boring film that feels like a corporate PR course correction, but still not quite understanding what the problem was to begin with. This film tries to include many elements that made their classic so beloved in the first place, like a villain, magic, a talking animal sidekick, music, a quirky, clumsy female protagonist, but it feels like they're out of practice and have forgotten how to do these things. The main character, Asha, is vanilla and lacks a personality trait beyond clumsy and she cares too much. And no, I'm not making it up. That's a genuine line of dialogue in this film. The villain is a total joke. It is very obvious that the character is intended to be a straw man of all of Disney's detractors who just don't understand the magic of Disney and only want people to have dreams and wishes their way. It's also really distracting that this guy, who was apparently suave enough to be able to convince large hordes of people to come live in his kingdom if they just give up their biggest wish, is apparently somehow unable to contain his temper whenever he's even slightly challenged. Which, okay, I guess this is as good a time as any to talk about the conflict of the story. Now, there was controversy when the trailer was first released because the main villain was saying that not every wish needs to be granted, which, yeah, many people didn't think was that unreasonable. But that's not quite what's going on here. So, the way this works in the film is that in his kingdom, once you turn 18, you make a wish, and he basically keeps it. And you forget entirely what the wish even was. And then once a month, he grants a wish. So, why is he keeping all those wishes to himself? I honestly don't know. I guess they're giving him some kind of power, I think, but they don't exactly make that clear. So our main hero discovers that the majority of wishes will never be granted, which I have no idea how that knowledge evaded her when apparently only 12 wishes get granted a year, but whatever. And so basically all she wants is for people to be able to remember what wishes they even made were. And that's it. That is literally her entire motivation. Are the townsfolk in any kind of danger because of this? Not really, at least not at first. Do they seem kinda half awake or zombie-like? Well, one character does, but everyone else seems perfectly normal. So the conflict here is pretty undercooked, and what they do with the villain is really strange and bizarre. The film tries to give him a backstory and make him sympathetic and give him traits that hint that, he may not be so bad, just, misguided. But then in the second half, the film just goes off the rails and turns him into an irredeemable monster that can't be reasoned with. I kind of feel like in order for something like this to work, you need a reasonable catalyst. and the villain isn't really given one, so his dark turn kinda comes out of nowhere. The music is also very boring. Generic pop-sounding beats that would go in one ear and out the other on the radio. You can tell that one song in particular is desperately trying to be the next Let It Go or We Don't Talk About Bruno. This big, epic song that just represents Disney, but it does come across as trying too hard. Even the animation doesn't look quite right. For the most part, I've been pretty accepting of films that blended 2D and 3D, or at least 3D that's made to look like 2D. The Peanuts movie did it great, as did Klaus, but this one did not do it well. It's kind of strange. It's like the characters are trying to become 2D, but the 3D is holding it back. And the settings and the backgrounds are pretty flat and honestly just not that much fun to even look at. At least if the film was traditionally animated, even if it didn't look fantastic, I would have at the very least respected it. I just don't respect the animation here. The humor in this is also really weak. None of the jokes made me laugh or even chuckle, and there is way more toilet and gross out humor than I was expecting. Let's just say I did not need to see a character eating a snot-covered cookie. Now, to be fair, this isn't an absolutely horrible film. It's not like Raya and the Last Dragon, in which it's actually teaching a bad message that could do some damage. Neither is it as mean-spirited and downright offensive as Chicken Little. This is watchable enough, I guess, while you're watching it. But that's the problem. There's almost nothing digestible in here. Nothing to really sink your teeth into. I guess the voice acting is fine. I mean, the actors are doing what was asked of them, and they do what was asked of them just fine. I guess the message of not looking for someone else to grant your wishes for you is fine as a moral, although it is a little weird that that's the message that they go with for Disney's milestone picture, but whatever. But yeah, if my positives have this many reservations, you know we're not exactly in Disney Renaissance territory. I can't say I was disappointed by Wish, because honestly I wasn't expecting much to begin with. This really feels less like a story and more like an excuse to try to weave together a bunch of Disney references, along with some kind of story about wishing upon a star is good, which, if you can pull that off, more power to you, but it's quite clear that they just didn't have a story worth telling here. This film cannot help but feel like a corporate shell of itself. You can feel the manipulation at every corner, and that doesn't go away. I honestly doubt this film will have staying power with its audience. And I know it feels like rubbing salt in the wound because Disney has had such a terrible year, both critically and financially, especially for a film that's supposed to celebrate their centennial, but I think it's rather fitting in a way. Disney has desperately lost their way. They don't actually know what their audiences want, and right now, they don't know what to do. They tried to make an old-fashioned film, the same kind of fairy tales that they used to, but they either didn't update the stuff that should have been updated, and they didn't keep the stuff the same that they should have kept the same. And thus, their dismal year ended not with a bang, not with a splash, but with a tiny whimper. Wish gets a half-empty shot. And I guess that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you want to see my early thoughts of any film I watch, or to read more of my reviews, make sure to check out my Letterboxd account. The link to that is in the description below. And make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss any upcoming reviews. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.